Hello Pisces, welcome to the Plaid Oracle. Your message is interestingly quite similar to the Aquarius message, but not the same. So Aquarius was about taking kind of a well-deserved break, a moment to celebrate an achievement of some kind. Whereas yours is actually more of a call to action. But in both cases, there's been a long submersion here with this depth lake. A long submersion in perhaps in exploring yourself, maybe in exploring spiritual concepts, right? Different meditative techniques. Maybe you've gone on some sort of retreat. This in-depth exploration. But now it says weight of the world, but more, it's really about surfacing, right? She's on the surface of this water, right? It's sort of churning. It's like she's risen, been raised up, and her face has broken the surface of the water. Now, it does say boundaries, let it go, it's not yours to carry. And there is something about you perhaps not wanting the weight. That there's been a calling, there's been an idea that's occurred to you about what you could do now, moving forward. But there's part of you that really doesn't want to do it. Right, with this Hierophant, and not just a Hierophant, but he's, not only is he sort of in robes, but he's got a mask on. He's very remote. He's very remote. This is not a priest that you could, just sort of walk up to and have a chat. We tell you to call him Bob. This is not. And I think you've associated whatever this idea, this calling that has come. I mean, that's a thread that's running through. Leo had a reading about, their letter arriving, and Aquarius has, is kind of being asked to take the final step. Before moving, to be ready to take, right, the next thing. And actually underneath here is this Two of Wands. And you notice, are looking away from the light. Kind of backwards. Or actually, you're sort of looking at this little tiny light down here, as opposed to this much brighter light that's here. So this choosing Do you choose sort of the smaller option or the brighter, more expanded option? And the part of you that has had this idea is all ready to go. Knight of Wands, fiery energy, and look at him, right? He's smiling in the direction of this firelight that's illuminating him. Right? He's ready to go. And what he's seeing, first of all, the Magician. Then, interestingly, the Hermit. And then the Hanged Man. And this is an interesting trio. They are, right, they're all solitary. You know, the Magician works alone in his tower, and the Hermit, of course, is solitary, and then the Hanged Man is alone when he hangs upside down in Yggdrasil. The connection that they have is through Source, through the consciousness realm. But at the same time, there is this sense with this trio of working towards a larger goal. You know, he is, you know, very much looking outward. He's dressed to travel. He's got the moon behind him, so he's emotionally invested. And then the Hermit is outside. He's got his lantern. You know, and there is a way in which hermiting doesn't have to be, right, like a constant. That you can retreat for a time, and then you come back out to report on what you have experienced and discovered and learned during this depth time. And then this Hanged Man is also calling up death, because he's a skeleton and there's these crows. Now the Hanged Man is a water energy, and he appears 3 times in this reading. And here he's very much feeling like death, right? That this is a really transformational period for him. To learn things, and then to be able to take that learning into the world. So, the fairies came out for you, Pisces. Oh, that gnome. He's one of the gnomes. I mean, they all, you know, all fairies have a very well-developed sense of humor, but he is especially trickstery. And he's here kind of to give you a little poke. Pisces. I think that if you're not experiencing it yet, you are going to start experiencing things that are going to push you right out of this depth, right? That are going to raise you up to be back amongst us. Stuff's going to happen. And it's interesting, you know, you are part of the Virgo-Pisces axis, right? And this traveling hermit has come out for you. And also in the Virgo reading, there was the idea that maybe these sort of little towery events were happening that would require Virgo to ask for help. And I don't know that that's right. The idea of help isn't really here. But things that are going to pull you, push you out of this depth space. And right below that is the Singer of Intuition. And so you may be, right, you may be getting inklings of this, you may be feeling this, you may be experiencing these events. And that something is telling you that there is purpose in them. Right, it's a lovely time. Mercury is retrograde for another several days until the 15th, this Friday. And then he's still, you know, he turns forward, but then he passes through that retro shade, as Gemini Brett says. So there's time, right? It's a good, right? The energy is there for, right, little crap that happens. Stuff that just requires you to come back into full presence with the world. And this is reiterated with this gotcha fairy. Surprises, yes. You know, be mindful. Mind how you go. Surprises ahead. You know, there's no map. And then, interestingly, came out this card. It's my bit of artwork. So when you buy the Faeries Oracle, you get this blank card, and you're meant to do a little drawing of your special, your personal fairy guide, the fairy that's taken you on as their client. They're part of their fellowship. So very much pay attention to yourself. And pay attention to all of yourself. That extra cautious bit that's afraid, that is anxious about this kind of Hierophant energy. You know, that you're going into a place that you don't like, that's really constricted, that has a lot of rules and laws and regulations. You know, on a practical level, maybe you've been working for yourself, or you've been working for, you know, a little tiny company. You've had this idea to go work for some really big company, like a corporation. You know, or maybe to, you know, if you're a teacher, maybe you've been, you know, you're a professor, maybe you've been teaching at some, you know, little tiny college somewhere, and you've had this idea to go work for like a state university. And, right, this just seems horrible to you. What is that? Right, those places, they have rules and regulations and stuff. What do I, really, it's not really an attractive idea. You know, this makes me think of when I worked at a holistic place, and there was talk of, you know, reaching out to a big company, you know, to sort of offer ourselves as somebody who could create workshops and programs for the company. And there was somebody that I worked with who thought this was a horrible idea, right? That we were like gonna be making a deal with the devil and, you know, getting sucked into this world. But of course, if teachers, right, who teach these holistic ideas, spiritual ways of being, if they are isolated, then those places that we feel are, you know, sort of distorted or have issues and troubles, places, you know, large corporations or, you know, giant universities, then how do they change? Right? The sage. When you know you're being asked to take this information to somewhere where it isn't. To take your particular light into a place that doesn't have that light. To be this sage energy. And, you know, the sage doesn't fear going into such spaces. He is confident in himself, in his own ability to keep his own counsel, to remain uncorrupted, if we want to say that. Another outside thing, if you ever watch the Abraham Hicks videos, they talk about how one really aligned person is more powerful, you know, than 100 unaligned people. That it's not about force. This is not sort of a Newtonian or Einsteinian, I should say. Or, I'm sorry, Newtonian, yes. I don't know why I wanted to bring Einstein into it. Maybe that'll come out later. That seems to be happening to me too, that I misspeak and then it shows up later. So this Newtonian idea, you know, having to, a force having to act on something before it'll move. So that somehow you have to be this giant force. But we know that isn't true. Right? There's so many ways that if you're in this spiritual, holistic community that you learn this, right? Through homeopathy. Through, you know, how the idea of attention, through the ideas of alignment, through the idea of energy healing. All of the ways that we see that it's not necessarily about force or size. Right? And so here you are, handing this cup to someone else. And interestingly, the Hierophant appears again underneath, but this time he's a bit more accessible. I mean, he's still up here on the thing there, but there are other people now. Right? We can see a back and forth. He's not so remote. And then we have this King of Swords. And I feel like this is a caution to not discount the intellect. That the intellect is part of this. And another thing, bringing another outside thing in, I've just started reading an Iain McGilchrist book, The Master and the Emissary. And it's all about left brain, right brain. Now, you may know this in the popular culture way, or you may know that in theory it's been debunked, right? That all parts of the brain do all stuff. Iain's theory, or his thesis, is that it's not what popular culture thinks it is, right? Where the left brain is all about math and doing things on a schedule and regularity and language and these kinds of boxy things, and the right brain is all about images and pictures and touchy-feely things. What he says is that it's not about what each hemisphere does, it's about how. And that the two are meant to work together. And that sometimes one, is meant to lead over the other. But that they work together. So both sides understand language, but speech, like actual verbalizing, is over in the left. But it doesn't mean that the right doesn't comprehend mathematics. It just means that the right brain will see it differently. So, eliminating preconceived notions about what intellect and the air element and Aquarius and technology are about. Seeing Hangman number 2 things differently. Being able to take a different perspective. If we think about AI, and there are 2 broad camps, right? There's the AI is awesome, right? It saves labor, it's cool, it'll, save a lot of money. And then on the other hand is the AI is, a sign of the apocalypse. We're all going to be turned into sort of brain mushy zombies because nobody will, ever imagine anything ever again. So, right? But this is, in fact, a very left-brained way to see the thing. I'm noticing, right, that his legs are crossed here and his hands are joined behind his back. Seeing things from both perspectives more holistically. I mean, that's part of your gig, Pisces, is the ability to eliminate borders between things, to embrace paradox. Yes, and. And then this 8 of Cups, combined with this 5 of Swords. And I don't see you as actually this person, but you're one of these people. You're walking away from the fight. You now see a lot of these conflicts, a lot of this back and forth as a false war, an unnecessary argument. And that ability to see things more holistically means that you could enter this environment that seems forbidding and change it, right? How you observe people, how you arrive in a space. And that leads me to yet another book thing. I don't know what that's about. So many stories. In one of Martha Beck's books, and I don't remember which one, she talks about how we think about things can change the result. So she knows someone who works as a police officer, and he works on something like a SWAT team, right, that goes and, enters these dangerous spaces where, people may want to shoot back or shoot first. But at some point, I don't remember what it was that happened to him that he sort of became more holistic about this. And so he began to imagine, initially, that everybody in the room was already dead. Or that they were asleep. That when they entered, there would be no resistance. And it would turn out that way. Right? If he was in the lead and he was really, calm and in this space, they would just enter. And everybody in the space was calm too. It's like he sent out this field of calm ahead of him. Right? His belief that everything was going to be fine and well created a situation where other people, kind of participated in this view of things. And so we have the Nine of Cups. The necessity for you to manage yourself, your emotions, to have emotional sovereignty, to be able to be in the deep and to be on the surface, to know when you need to retreat, you need to have time alone, to know how to nourish yourself, to know, what kinds of stuff, whether it's food or newspaper articles, are, detrimental to this energy, and to avoid them. To know how to return to balance. And now we have Hanged Man, number 3. And this one seems sort of extra, like a little extra mythic. I mean, he's hanging out here with fairies. Extra magical. He has kind of a crystal ball here that he's holding between his legs and his hands. And he seems sort of like a combination of these 3 energies: the Magician, the Hermit, and the Hanged Man. So to really embrace all of your skills, your personal spiritual skills, your intuitive skills, your ability to speak to the invisible and non-physical world, You have all of this. You can now go forward. And there may be, right, there may still be a bit of reluctance or a little bit of inertia, shall we say, to get out of this kind of deep space where you've been gazing into the waters. And the way out is the Ace of Cups. Your own heart space. That idea that's come to you. Or maybe, maybe somebody suggested it and a part of you went, ooh, I'd kind of like to do that. Right? That sounds sort of exciting. It may be really, really challenging, and there may be all kinds of obstacles, but, also I kind of want to do it. And this is bringing in yet another example. Madam Secretary, have you watched that? Teo Leone. So in the beginning, right, she's a CIA officer who quit on ethical grounds, and she's been teaching, and the new president shows up and invites her to be Secretary of State. And, part of her, of course, that's like a serious thing, right? You've gone from, living on this horse farm and just having students and papers to grade to entering, right, this incredible arena. And she's reluctant, but, right, the spark is fired. There's another part of her that's like, yes, I want to go do that. I think, right, I want to go and actually make a difference. By being myself, by doing my very best to keep my own integrity and not compromise myself. Nothing is perfect, and if you watch the show, you know that. But it is possible, right, to go into spaces when you are in alignment and make real change, even against what seems like an enormous force of habit and inertia and programming and power. And so we have the King of Cups. The power of the water, the power of consciousness, the power of the fact that we are all interconnected to each other. You may not believe that you're psychic, but you are receiving from other people around you, whether you know it or not. This power of connection, this Piscean vision, right, of the borderless space. I think of Pisces as all of the underground water that's connected, right? All of the underground rivers that connect oceans to lakes, to other oceans, to rivers, that connect the soil to the water, that connect us to the water. So, advice. Knowing the voices, right? If this download has come in, but you're still like, no, 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 just 5 more minutes. If this sort of feels like, oh, right? It's like, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, right? It's scary. First advice, of course, the Ace of Emotions. Rise, surface. See the world. And see the world holistically. You know, I was thinking after reading this book that the idea that the left brain takes things in pieces, right? It takes things out of context, right? It's how we can do something scientific. You know, we analyze this component and then this component. Whereas the right will see it, you know, synergistically. And you know, when we see someone we love, we see their whole self, right? Like their whole loved face, their whole self. But sometimes, right, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, the left brain pops in and we start to see parts, right? We decide that our nose is kind of crooked or it's too big, or you know, our face is too round or it's too thin. You know, our eyes kind of turn down, or they're too small, or, you know, our mouth is too giant, or, right? And we do that with other things. We do that with the world. We pick bits out. See it wholly. Right? Enthusiasm, the Chariot. Let it take you. Let that solar plexus energy carry you. Right? That enthusiasm that's building within you, even if you've been trying to tamp it down. Exuberance, even when you know that there's going to be things to manage and handle. That there's going to be challenges. That you're going to have to make choices and decisions, and maybe enter into conflicts, and you know, make kind of ethical and moral decisions, and you know, make decisions about people's lives in the real world, and right, that there's going to be stuff, but that how you enter into it matters. Enter into it joyfully, Pisces. And then the Muse of Emotions. This sits in the slot for the King of Cups in this deck. But, right, this is about connection to your wider self. Your wider self has your back. Pisces. When you answer your own call, when you answer this grail, heart-based call, then everything, right, everything will come, will assist you. Doesn't mean there won't be challenges, but you will have assistance. Your soul has your back. I mean, your soul has your back all the time. But it wants you to know, especially now, as you enter into the challenge, your soul has your back. It's time to surface, Pisces. Take up the challenge. Go and be yourself. in a place that could really use that energy and will flourish because you bring yourself into the mix. I wish you all the very, very best, Pisces. And I will see you next time. So long.